Oh, hello there. Let me put this heavy thing down. It is Ben here from Scope and 2FAST2MOVIE here to just let you know we had a couple technical issues with this episode, which is the reason why it's coming out late. Not to worry though, everything sounds fine, and all those issues have been fixed for the foreseeable future. So fortunately that means that our next episode is going to be coming out on schedule, which just so happens to be tomorrow. So with that in mind, please enjoy watching the episode, and I'll see you in a couple seconds.
Hello, everybody. It's 2FAST2MOVIE. I'm your host, Abraham, and with me is my co-host, Ben Collins,
Hello.
here to talk about Season 1, Episode 6 of Attack on Titan, The World the Girl Saw, The Struggle for Trust, Part 2. Now, before we begin, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications, because we post all the time, and spoilers ahead, not just for this episode, but for all episodes of Attack on Titan. You have been warned! Okay, this is a really fun episode, and I can't wait to jump into it. But actually, I kind of want to read some comments, because we did get some... we're going to read two. One from Crazy Yeezy 21 says, I would definitely agree that Reiner destroying the wall for a second time was ego pride, because when he put wanting to be seen as a hero by Marley above the lives of Paradisians, Reiner became similar to Erin. However, I think there's a distinction. I think a distinction should be made. I still believe Erin is working for what he believes to be the best interest of Paradise and his friends, and doesn't care about being a hero. So Erin's motivations for his actions are much more selfless than wanting to be a hero. Still doesn't justify Erin's actions or what we suspect Erin is going to do, but if Erin's plan is to do the rumbling, then he'll be an anti-villain, where Reiner would be more like a regular villain. I would have to agree with that comment, but I think it's clear that they're setting up Reiner for some sort of redemption.
I'd agree with that. I think that So, I will say, Reiner's actions, when you put it in comparison, Reiner has a much more heinous motivation for what he's doing than what Erin ever had. And I feel like Crazy Yeezy, good username, by the way.
Crazy Yeezy.
I feel like Crazy Yeezy 21 put it pretty damn well. And and that's one of the beauties of like how these two characters are foiled. It's just the fact that they make a lot of the same choices, but at least Erin's has an ideology behind it that he's true to, where Reiner is entirely fueled by self-loathing.
Well, there's also a lot more hatred behind Erin's actions and like almost like a vengeance. Something that isn't present really with Reiner. Reiner does feel remorse in season 4. I don't know if
I think it's hatred if Erin does the rumbling. But if Erin goes through with the mass euthanization plan, then
they're pretty much like foils of each other. Then it's pretty
much like, I think Erin again. Eugenics is fucked up, and self-eugenics is like a whole other fucking can of worms.
But, like, genocide of the entire world is
significantly worse. Like, it's really, like, they're both not great scenarios, no matter what Erin does, unless we find out about a new ending that isn't either of these things. Erin's not good.
Yeah, that's pretty much the consensus. We got one more comment from James Osborne. One of the things I love the most that I caught during my rewatch was that Annie, Reiner, and Bertold have always been together on screen, and also the fact that Reiner dropped the term warrior, describing Annie so early on during the training episode, and Annie separates with them during 116 because she joins the military police. This leads to the female Titan arc starting on 117. We're going to be talking about that in the next few episodes of 2FAST2MOVIE. About the connection that Annie, Reiner, and Bertold have. Watching them, like we said earlier, it's like completely different now, and there are some things that are going to come up even in these early episodes.
Yeah, and again, like as someone who's watching all this stuff with someone that hasn't watched it before, I'm always constantly like, oh fuck. Oh fuck.
Yeah.
I'm just like I can't say anything, but like inside I'm freaking out all the time.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, that means this, that means that.
It's very reminiscent of like anyone who's ever watched Full Metal Alchemist. rewatching that show is a joy for the same exact reason.
Mm-hmm.
Because, full Metal Alchemist spoiler, but literally the opening frame of that is the final transmutation circle.
Yeah.
So, like, it's phenomenal. Everything works out perfectly.
Well, now that we've gotten some comments out of the way, why don't we go ahead and jump into this episode, and we can go ahead and give a recap for those of you who have not seen it in a hot minute. As Mikasa worries for Erin's safety, she can't help but remember the first time she met Erin. When she and her parents lived alone on the outskirts of the cities, a group... Let me reset that. When she and her parents lived alone on the outskirts of the city, a group of men killed her family as they were trying to traffic them in the inner cities. At the same time, Erin and his father were on the way for a checkup. Seeing the bloody mess, Grisha went to call the authorities, and Erin went alone to face off against these criminals. Luckily, Mikasa and Erin took out all three of them, and the two were forever changed by this experience.
I just want to say one thing. In real life, a group of children against 3 adult men? Nope.
Well, it's lucky that we're in like the mid 1800s like period of technology, and like they're just bozos who were like, yeah, we're just gonna fucking walk in here and
I feel like the guns instead of knives would have set things off a little bit differently.
Yeah,
but
I think guns are only reserved for the military police.
Well, also like. We're from America.
Where guns are everywhere.
Where guns are just everywhere. So, like, in my mind, like, late 1800s, no, that man had he had a revolver.
Yeah.
But, like, this is, like, based out of, like, at least Europe.
And, like, it's like a weird dystopia where, like, everyone is safe.
Yeah, so
like,
really there wouldn't be much... I mean, there would be human-on-human crime, and we do see that in the whole sort of Levi backstory thing later down the line.
It's still rare.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and, because I know this episode really just hinges on Mikasa's character. I think that's like a really good place to just start. We have some problems with Mikasa's character, and not just her, but well, this is something that we'll obviously talk about in another episode. But female representation in this show, it's crazy how much they've changed Mikasa from the manga to the show.
Okay,
because in the manga. Isayama made Mikasa more than just an Erin. Erin! Over and over again. It's a lot more, at least, like, she's obviously, like, a person that cares about Erin.
Yeah.
And that's something that is still part of her character.
Does she have agency beyond Erin?
Yeah, in somewhat. It's still given a little bit more depth.
Okay.
It's her care for Erin is an aspect of her character, not her entire character.
Yeah.
Which I think is the biggest difference between anime and manga.
Yeah.
And like, there's nothing wrong with Mikasa caring for Erin, because this situation that they went through together.
Oh yeah, it would you would trauma bond hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the main things that definitely comes off. So here's the thing. The writing can be good, but you have to remember with representation, these things are very important no matter what anyone says about it. And no matter what the writing that goes into it, it is really important to balance out your characters and make sure that you're giving agency that is, especially to like having the one lead female character. So far, I will say the show does get better, and this is not a complete indictment on the entirety of Attack on Titan, but for the large portion of this first season, everything Mikasa does has everything to do with Erin. She doesn't have motivation outside of Erin, and of course, like later down the line, we learn about the whole Ackerman thing, which is you have to remember, it's like, yes, that does explain it, but it doesn't change the representation.
No, but it just gives justification for it. Which,
again, justification does not overwrite the representation.
No,
though.
Doesn't. But it does. It in a weird way. It provides its own self-awareness.
Yeah,
like, you know, it would be one thing if this character, if this was written like typical anime, where they're like, this person is a strong female character, and that they are explicitly shown in a way that isn't very like a positive light, like their representation is very shallow, whereas this one is like, this person is strong, cares about this person, and they're badass until season 4 when you're like, oh no, that's a problem.
Yeah. So I think one thing, so if we're going, now we're in the Ackerman thing, one thing that I do think is really important to talk about when talking about the Ackerman piece and being like, oh yes, that's a good write-in for why Mikasa does that. But the issue is that you have this other Ackerman in the show who has agency beyond just the person that activation happened for. Because we know that for Levi, at least, I don't believe the show ever explicitly states it, but his Ackerman thing kicks in, and the person that he's forever loyal to is Commander Irwin.
Seemingly, if the whole thing was true in season 4.
Yeah, if the whole thing is true. That being said, Levi has plenty of agency beyond the commander.
Does he? Like, I'm trying to think. Like, I'm not agreeing with you just for the sake of it, because I'm actually trying to think. Levi is a character compared to Mikasa. Levi also is sort of like this, like a surface level, at least, emotionless, stoic character.
Yeah.
And who's only about the mission of doing X. In Mikasa's case, protecting Erin. In Levi's case, following Erwin and killing Titans. And like the shifts that happen later on when he realizes that he's been killing Titans, that killing actual humans, like of course that's a revelation, but beyond that, I actually don't know how much Levi gets in terms of development besides from the OVA.
So I think, again, and this is something that I think might actually be a really good thing for us to just keep an eye out, because once we're done covering this arc, we're going to be getting into Levi a lot.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a really good thing for us to kind of, and actually it's kind of an exciting media analysis to do, because now we have a really clean cut foil between these characters, and that can really decide exactly how, if basically we can just use this series of this rewatch to really decide if Mikasa's writing is an actual problem by the end of it.
Yeah.
Or if it actually works.
Yeah, if it's just a problem that they wrote themselves into and then they retconned it, or if it was always something that they were trying to do but didn't.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm going to be reading the manga alongside, and I will try to point out as many differences in dialogue as I can. Because even something as simple as Mikasa, instead of just saying like Erin when he's getting kidnapped, instead of her saying like we need to go now, like that's something that she says to Hanji sometime in season 1, I think. Yeah. Instead of just saying Erin and Hanji holding her back, she's like, we need to hurry, we need to go after them now.
Because that's an example of agency, because it's like, yes, her motivation is towards that, but she's giving a command, and it's we need to go, not I need to go.
Right. That's the biggest difference. Yeah,
like that's an example of her taking charge. So yeah, that's, I mean, you have to remember, Japan has a lot of its own problems with female representation, period.
Right.
So this is a good, and again, this show is by no means the worst, and actually does have a lot of female characters that take up agency later down the line. But I believe that there are some questions of how they also sort of present the female characters with agency versus the female characters without.
Right. We'll be talking about more, I think, in the next episode when they introduce Hanji and Levi, Hanji and other characters from Levi's squad who, will
fit that bill.
Yeah. While we're on the subject of Mikasa, and we just talked about the Ackerman clan, we should also talk about Hizuru, because from the beginning, Mikasa is one of the only, actually I think she is the only Asian character in the entire show. It's like explicitly stated that like Asian people are very, like there's like almost no one in the entire island. So we know that Hizuru is a thing from the beginning. The one thing that is strange is the continuity error. In this episode, she's saying, oh, you need to learn this like stitching technique or like this embroidery pattern that's been handed down, and like they're like sewing in the beginning. In season 4, she takes off a wrap that's like marked on her arm, like a brand almost.
Yeah.
So I don't know what caused the change. I mean, anime adaptations just usually take liberties like that.
So
it's just a strange.
In the manga, was it never, was it like the stitch that she originally did? That was
No,
how
she
was
never
identified?
did the stitch. That stitch is added in the anime.
Oh. So in the manga, was the fucking, was the mark on her arm just, was that in the beginning or was that shoehorned in?
That was in this scene when they're having that conversation at dinner. Instead of her saying, learn this like technique and shows her like the stitching pattern, instead it's a mark on her arm that she already has.
So
the anime just changed it.
So this studio was just like, oh yeah, that mark that was put on this character is definitely not important.
More, I think it could be a censorship thing. Branding children is rough. It's a rough concept to have, so I can totally understand why someone was like, let's just make it a fucking embroidery pattern, but
just make it a fucking birthmark. What do you?
It's a weird thing with
censoring. The JoJo route. She's got a fucking star on her back.
It's a weird thing with censoring on the show because you would think that a show that is about man-eating, bloodthirsty, ravenous titans. Like, they do a lot of things with censoring on the show. It's kind of unwise.
I have a great example for next episode because there's a fucking scene that just had me like, what?
Okay.
We'll get there.
Get there. We'll talk about that. But I think that's pretty much it for Mikasa's character. We just got to talk about, because the rest of this episode, and I guess the rest of this discussion, is the insanity behind this scenario that they've been put through, and Erin's fucking attitude in the entire episode.
Well, again, opening up, I was like, this is unrealistic. Children should be able to do this. I can't. It's very, like, if you hear about this in the news, it's like, yeah, those kids did something that every adult would be like, don't do that.
Yeah, that's a very bad idea. Well, and the strategy's actually pretty good on Erin's part. Because, like, I'll give him that.
Yeah, because he's a little fucking psychopath.
He's a kid who's, like, holding a knife, and he's fake crying. Like in actual tears, I think, at the... Like, it's sociopathic shit. He gets the guy close to him, stabs him in the throat, and then closes the door so that the other guy comes to him, and then stabs him with the extended brutal.
It's some serial killer shit. That's the fucking thing.
I mean, but he's not dumb. Like, it's dumb that he did that, but it's like he had a plan.
Actually pulled it off. But again, this is like the thing where we talked about this when we were originally covering. Like, oh, was Erin actually like this all along? Yes.
He was. He was indeed like this all along.
He's been.
He's a maniac.
He's been a fucking problem, and it's one of the. So like this. Oh wow, this is a weird thing to talk about. So. There was, and you can kind of extend this to this in like a real world scenario type situation. There was I don't know if that's picking up.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Fuck it. It's fine. So in a real life scenario, one of the things that like has been sort of cited, I forget the name of the study, so I'm just kind of pulling this out of my butt. But there was a correlation between the type of people that are like, for lack of a better term, capable of being heroes. So the kind of people that would be able to run into a burning building, be able to do shit like this where they really put themselves on the line, are hardwired the same way as serial killers.
Which is kind of interesting because Erin is seen as this idealistic person for 3 seasons, and then in the 4th season, it's a switch.
Exactly. So there's this idea that the people that are capable of doing these really heroic acts and putting themselves on the line are the same people that you would actually be able to diagnose as a sociopath, because they are capable of turning off their ability to empathize, but also their own ability of self-preservation. Yeah. Which is something that has been well established that
Erin does.
Well, serial killers and mass murderers can do as well.
But Erin does that clear,
all the time.
It's laid out as thick as possible in this episode, because against these people, I said this in our season 4 discussion, part 1. Erin in this episode, and I just rewatched this like yesterday, Erin goes on the record saying to Grisha later on, these people were devils in disguise. They were like wearing meat suits and they were pretending to be human, and I took them out.
Yep.
Like, and Grisha's like, what the, like kneeling down, holding his head. What the fuck is wrong with you? Why?
Grisha just can't get himself some good kids.
Okay, that...
I think Zeke is a better child, in all honesty.
Well, this actually leads me to a point that I kind of wanted to make. Because this is... We talked about this in season 4, and you brought this up, and I actually don't think you're right when you said this. You said that Erin had a normal childhood, that Grisha didn't influence him as much as he did Zeke. We don't know that.
Here's the...
Because Erin at this age is the same age that Zeke was in season 4, and we haven't seen anything prior to this moment in terms of Erin's childhood.
Here's my rule with fiction and this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It is up to the author to establish that if that is indeed factual. It is not... I can't just go ahead and say headcanon-wise he may have had a similar sort of upbringing as Grisha.
No, I'm not saying that.
Or a heavy hand. What I'm saying is I cannot, until proof is given to me as far as doing analysis is concerned, even make that argument. So the second, like, we are given even kind of a hint that Grisha was kind of, like, conditioning Erin for this kind of thing, I just can't go ahead and make that assumption. I'm not saying make the assumption that it is true. I'm just mean entertain the possibility. I think it's worth...
It's worth looking into.
I think it's worth being like, there's a slight possibility, but again, until we are given at least a little bit of foreshadowing.
We have, in season 3, that whole thing with the what's it called? The Patriots. He led an entire revolution against Marley, was trying to use his own child. Like, there is a darkness that exists within Grisha.
Oh, no. I'm not talking about within Grisha, because the thing that you have to remember is Grisha's also putting up a disguise the entire time he's within the walls. Until I see any evidence that Grisha may have lifted that veil up just a little bit for Erin and his wife, I can't make that assumption when doing an analysis.
That's fair, because I didn't even think about the idea that he's like has to be secret.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, yeah, it is still like something that like lingers in the back of my mind about Grisha and Erin's relationship pre the wall falling, because, you know, he's always been like baiting him with the key, but it's unclear as to whether or not seeds were planted. Yeah.
So unless like we get some shit in the latter half of season 4 that points in that direction, I just can't. I can't entertain it.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty much. This episode is really fantastic because because up until this point you don't really know Erin and Mikasa. Like, you know them, but you don't understand why they are the way that they are. Because Mikasa's whole like infatuation with Erin is seen as like a weird like love thing. And and it's not until this moment that you realize, like, oh, they're kind of like...
They're trauma bonded.
They're trauma bonded, and like, they're kind of like weirdly like family.
Well, those things are not mutually exclusive.
Well, yeah.
So the thing is that I genuinely do read... I can't, for the life of me, see a world where Mikasa's affection is established as just sisterly or motherly.
Oh God, no! It's love.
The way I see it, I can definitely, especially with the whole scenes oh my God, the whole scenes later on with Erin and the like, I've always hated you thing. Part of that, like, we're doing some of these rewatches, and the way that he just gets angry at Mikasa when she's trying to protect him. Like, I can read it that he was probably a little bit more truthful than we at all wanted to believe.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We'll have to look at it more as the series continues, because there is a lot more Erin and Mikasa interactions. But let us know, I guess, what you thought of this episode down in the comment section down below. We would love to hear more of your thoughts and comments.
Do you think Grisha fucking conditioned Erin earlier than we thought? Is that like, is there more precedent for that than we think there is? Because if we can like really start picking out some pieces here, we might actually be able to land on something pretty good.
Maybe, but only time will tell. Let us know what you think. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Like, comment, and subscribe, and check us out for more later next week. Until next time. It's too fast to movie. You gotta work on the time.
But fuck you.